like, it's not. Hey everyone, it's Annie and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I'm gonna be rating my mineral sunscreens. If you know me, you know that I do not like mineral sunscreens and I am all about chemical sunscreens. But I do get a lot of requests on recommendations for mineral sunscreens, so I have been testing out different mineral sunscreens these past couple of months. Most of the time, I'm reaching for a chemical sunscreen just because the formulas are usually more cosmetically elegant than mineral sunscreens. Mineral sunscreens understandably get a bad rap because no one wants to be dealing with white cast and looking like Mark. I also find that physical or mineral sunscreens also tend to pill and the formulas can just be really thick and pasty sometimes. But luckily, sunscreen innovation has come a really long way and there are some really great mineral options out on the market now. I also included some combination filter sunscreens in this list for a bit of variety. And a combination filter sunscreen means that it uses both mineral and chemical filters. I know for a lot of people with either sensitive skin or maybe skin issues like eczema, mineral sunscreens are the preference because they can be less sensitizing to skin as compared to chemical sunscreens. But before we jump into the sunscreen reviews, I wanted to share some tips on how to make mineral sunscreens work better for you. So the first one is white cast and things you can do to minimize it. So the most popular sunscreen filters are zinc oxide and titanium dioxide, which are filters that are typically more gentle on our skin and great for blocking off UV rays from our skin to prevent damage. But because they are so great at reflecting off UV rays, they can leave that dreaded white cast on our skin sometimes. Your mineral sunscreen is leaving a white cast on your skin, but it's a formula you really love and want to make it work. You can always using a complexion or foundation product over the sunscreen to kind of help color correct to get that sunscreen closer to your actual skin color. You can try applying your foundation, your tinted moisturizer, a BB or CC cream. Any complexion product should help. For deeper skin tones that only want to wear a mineral SPF, try to use a tinted mineral sunscreen for a higher chance that it'll be compatible with your skin tone. There are so many different tinted mineral sunscreen options out on the market now, so just try and test to see what works best for you. The second issue I've noticed with mineral sunscreens is pilling. Mineral sunscreens tend to pill on my skin because I always have so many layers of skincare underneath. So don't layer on too much skincare before you apply your mineral sunscreen. I find that using 1 to 2 layers of skincare max underneath is ideal and lowers the chance of pilling. Hopefully those tips can help your mineral sunscreens apply a bit better. Let's review some mineral sunscreens now. For all of these sunscreens, I applied about 2 fingers length worth of sunscreen. And this is around the recommended amount, which is 2 milligrams per square centimeter of skin to get that advertised sun protection on the bottle. If the bottle says SPF 50, you want to use 2 to 3 finger lengths worth of sunscreen in order to get SPF 50 protection from your sunscreen. First mineral sunscreen I want to review would have to be the Summer Fridays ShadeDrops Mineral Milk Sunscreen. And this is a really nice zinc oxide based sunscreen. It has a great formula as the texture is super light and milky, and it kind of feels like a serum and doesn't really feel like a mineral sunscreen to me. It's formulated with chamomile and it feels very gentle and hydrating on the skin. And there is a slight tint with the formula. It doesn't really leave a noticeable cast on my skin tone, but the tint is really light, so I could see it leaving a cast on deeper skin tones. The only issue I have with this sunscreen is it's only SPF 30. Typically when I'm looking for sunscreens, I always like SPF 50 at the minimum, so I just wish the protection was a little higher. Other than that, I think this is a really great mineral sunscreen with a beautiful light formula. This does retail for $36 and you are getting 1.7 fluid ounces, which does feel a bit pricey, especially when compared to the next sunscreen I'm going to talk about. The next sunscreen I want to review is the Prequel Sun Barrier Mineral Sunscreen Broad Spectrum SPF 50 PA+++++. And honestly, I am so impressed with this sunscreen. I am actually just such a fan of the entire Prequel line. Every single product I've tried is amazing. And I'm also just such a fan of Dr. Sam Ellis, the dermatologist who founded Prequel. And I actually got to meet her at a Brandt dinner a couple of months ago, and she is so cool. I would say that this is the mineral sunscreen that would be my top recommendation out of my entire list in terms of of price and formula. First of all, this is a high concentration zinc oxide sunscreen. It has 18% zinc oxide, but it really doesn't feel that way. And I'm really pleasantly surprised by how light and sheer the formula feels for it being such a high concentration of zinc oxide. It's really light, and it also has a slight tint to it that really just blends into the skin. And I feel like when compared to the Summer Fridays one, that was a 9% zinc oxide sunscreen. But if you compare the two, I feel like this one actually just blends into the skin better, which kind of just speaks to how well this product was formulated. I really love and am further impressed by with this product is not only is it SPF 50, but it's also PA 4+. It's amazing and honestly kind of rare for American brands to do. In the US, you don't have to do a PA test rating. And what the PA rating really measures is how well does this sunscreen protect against UVA rays. The actual number, so like an SPF 30 or an SPF 50, that number measures how well the sunscreen does in terms of protecting against UVB rays. And typically you'll see some American brands use the term broad spectrum, but I would say broad spectrum is also more just of a general marketing term. Have like a little bit of UVA protection and still get that broad spectrum term, versus with the PA rating how strong it can protect against UVA rays. I'm looking for sunscreens, not only am I looking for SPF 50, but I'm also looking for PA++++. Looking for a mineral sunscreen with an amazing formula and awesome protection, check out the Prequel Sun Barrier Mineral Sunscreen. Next is this Zitsticka MEGASHADE SPF 50, and this is a combination filter sunscreen. It has 3% zinc oxide and some chemical filters like homosalate, octinoxate, and octosalate. So this is kind of like a mineral chemical hybrid sunscreen. It has a very thin and runny texture, almost like a watery serum, and it's definitely really hydrating on the skin. The formulation contains hyaluronic acid and ceramides. It actually blended into my skin really well. It's gonna leave less of a white cast than your typical zinc oxide sunscreen just because there's also chemical filters in there as well. So it's definitely very hydrating on the skin because it contains hyaluronic acid and ceramides. Felt almost greasy when I was rubbing it into my skin because it is so hydrating, but once it absorbed, it actually felt fine and my skin just looked really moisturized and glowy. This sunscreen is also a really great option if you have acne prone skin because there's also niacinamide and tea tree oil to help with breakouts. And the formula is designed so that it won't clog pores. So this is a 1.7 ounce, which retails for $40. So this is the priciest sunscreen reviewed so far, but it does come in a smaller size. Next is the Kosas DreamBeam Comfy Smooth Sunscreen Broad Spectrum SPF 40. And this is a sunscreen that has kind of like a unique, almost pinkish sort of tint. I do like the tint because I find that it does kind of give me some coverage. And it does help with evening out and brightening my skin tone. I'll try swatching it on my wrist. But you can kind of see on my wrist, it's not really leaving a white cast and it is leaving like a skin-like tint. I feel like I could definitely wear this by itself on the days where, you know, I kind of do want some correcting, I want some brightening, but maybe I don't necessarily want to wear like a foundation or a tinted moisturizer or a complexion product. And it does blend in really nicely. Kosas also launched like a bronzier, darker shade of this sunscreen last year. So if this sunscreen leaves a tint that's maybe like too light for your skin, definitely check out the darker one. I have noticed if I'm wearing too many layers of skincare underneath, this sunscreen will pill on me. So anytime I use this, I make sure to keep it super minimal, super simple. This is a 21.7% zinc oxide sunscreen, but honestly, I feel like you can't really tell from the formula. I do wish the SPF rating was a bit higher on this sunscreen. It's at an SPF 40, but I almost kind of see this product as something in between like a sunscreen and a complexion product, just given the tint. And it does retail at $40 for about 1.3 ounces, which is a bit on the pricier side, but again, I do kind of feel like this is in between like a sunscreen and a complexion product. The next sunscreen I want to review is this EltaMD UV Clear Broad Spectrum SPF 46. And I was really excited to try out this sunscreen because I feel like there's so much hype around it. I feel like it seems to be universally loved by celebrities, influencers, content creators. I've seen so many people rave about this sunscreen, but honestly, when I tried it, I felt like really underwhelmed. First of all, everyone always says there is no white cast with this sunscreen, which is absolutely not true. I actually thought for the longest time this was a chemical sunscreen, but this is actually a combination sunscreen. It's 9% zinc oxide and 7.5% octinoxate. And even though it's a combination sunscreen, like I feel like it leaves way more white cast than it should. And honestly, like I do not get the hype. Like I just pumped out a bunch of this sunscreen, so it is leaving a white cast, but like I'm rubbing it in, I'm blending it in, I'm blending. If it's not blending in, it's gonna be a no from me. Like that just took so long to blend in. But I know they did reformulate the formula recently, and I'm actually not sure if I have the reformulation or if I have the original formula, because I have seen a lot of people online complain about how the reformulation isn't as good as the original. Once I blended it in, it does feel nice on the skin, but for the amount of time it takes to blend in, I just felt like it wasn't worth it. It also retails for $43 at 1.7 ounces, and I feel like there's just better choices out there for a combination sunscreen. Next, we have the Dr. Brandt Liquid Sun Shield, and this is a daily brightening mineral sunscreen SPF 50. So this is one of the more expensive sunscreens that I'm reviewing in my list, and the formula is very, very thick. Like it was so thick, it was even kind of hard to just dispense it out of the dropper. So I actually feel like the packaging would probably be better if it was in some sort of pump component. I can show you like how thick it is. This did blend into my skin pretty nicely, and it didn't leave any sort of white cast, but the formula felt very thick and heavy on my skin. And I just feel like at this price point, $67 for 1.7 ounces, like the formula needs to be amazing. The next sunscreen I want to review is the Tatcha Silk Sunscreen Broad Spectrum SPF 50 PA++++. So I don't know if you've noticed, but this is now the second sunscreen out of this whole list that has a 4 PA+ rating. So again, it's kind of rare to see that within American sunscreens, but it's always something that I'm looking for whenever I'm shopping for sunscreen. And this is a sunscreen on the pricier end, but oh my god, the formula is truly stunning for a mineral sunscreen. And honestly, this is one of those rare mineral sunscreens that actually feels like a chemical sunscreen. And it has a universal tint that really just blends in so beautifully with the skin. Look how quickly that just blends in. Absolutely no white cast at all. And it honestly doesn't feel like anything. Like that just blended in so quickly. That probably blended in the fastest out of all of the sunscreens we've tested today. And it literally just feels so light on the skin. It doesn't feel like anything. There's no white cast. There's no pilling. It doesn't sting my eyes. It just feels so light. It leaves a really beautiful, hydrated, dewy finish. I would actually reach for this sunscreen over some of the chemical sunscreens that I have. This is a 10% zinc oxide sunscreen, but honestly, you cannot even tell. It's really pricey at $64 for 1.7 ounces. If it's between like a Dr. Brandt or a Tatcha, I would definitely go for it. Like this is actually $3 more than the Tatcha, which I feel like is kind of crazy. It's really pricey, but I think it's worth it because it's such a beautifully cosmetically elegant formula, especially considering that it's a mineral sunscreen. And it just checks all the boxes for me. Super light, beautiful, cosmetically elegant formula, check. SPF 50, check. PA 4+, check. Feels so light on the skin, check. Blends into the skin quickly, check. I just wish it wasn't so pricey. And lastly, we have the most expensive sunscreen on my list. I actually found one that costs more than the Dr. Brandt, and it is the Murad Environmental Shield Correct and Protect Serum Broad Spectrum SPF 45 PA 4+. So this is like the third sunscreen on my list that has that PA 4+ rating. It is SPF 45. I do wish it was a little higher at that SPF 50, but this sunscreen is really nice and it has a very beautiful formula. This is a 17% zinc oxide sunscreen that leaves a very glowy finish, but it's not greasy at all. This is one of those sunscreens that just blends in so beautifully. Look how quickly that has just blended into my hand. Absolutely no white cast. It leaves a really beautiful, glowy and and dewy finish on the skin. I think this is a great sunscreen to really just have that last step to prep your skin for makeup. So water resistant for up to 40 minutes. So this would be a really great option if you're looking for a mineral sunscreen that you can wear to the beach or the pool, or if you're going to be outside and just sweating a lot during the day. This sunscreen is super pricey. It's $69 for 1 ounce, whereas the Tatcha one is $64 for 1.7 ounces. So you're getting a lot more with the Tatcha. I would say the main differences between these two is I feel like this would be a great option for someone with maybe drier skin, more mature skin who needs more moisture, or anyone who prefers like a really dewy, glowy finish. You're looking for an affordable mineral sunscreen that's not going to leave a white cast and still provide really great protection. Check out the Prequel Sun Barrier Mineral Sunscreen. If you have a budget and you just want the best mineral sunscreen, definitely check out Tatcha. And if your skin is on the drier side or you just want a glowier finish, then I would definitely recommend the Murad. Let me know if there's any mineral sunscreens that you think I should try, or even chemical sunscreens, because you guys know I love sunscreens and I love trying out new sunscreen. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.